So this isn't a watts to freedom launch control. This is just going to be a regular acceleration. It's probably going to be extremely fast because it's, well, fully electric. Okay. Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going over the all-new 2022 GMC Hummer EV. First and foremost, though, a huge shout out and thank you to the Southtown Tim Daly Nissan for giving me some time with this Hummer EV. They do have this available for sale for the time being. If you're interested, I'm going to include a link to their inventory in the description down below. They sell the brand new Nissan product, but then they also have a ton of awesome pre-owned vehicles, including a massive selection of electric vehicles, so definitely check them out. And then on a side note, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into the review. So I'm showing you guys the key fob first and foremost because, well, it is pretty much a regular GMC key fob. It does say Hummer EV on it though. But notice we have our unlock function, our lock function, remote start, the tailgate drop down, and we have the opening for the frunk. You guys can see the cool little light display that it does when you open up the frunk. But anyways, from a storage space perspective, this is actually pretty solid. Now, this isn't as large as the Ford F-150 Lightning in terms of the overall space, which is what a lot of people seem to be comparing this to, even though they're like two completely different price categories. But notice here, we've got the Hummer EV logo right there. And I mean, this is cool, super practical. I mean, most trucks obviously have an engine up front, and so you don't even get this. And also, we of course have a little escape button, and then there's a little 12 volt. Now, I haven't figured out how to close this from the key fob, because when I press the key fob twice, it is doing like the open function, but I think if I press it twice and hold it down, it might. Oh, there we go. So you press it twice and then hold it down, and that's what will actually lower it down with the key fob. That's pretty neat. And then before we go over the rest of the truck, I do want to get into some performance figures here with the Hummer EV. So it has about 1,000 horsepower and 1,200 pound-feet of torque, an electric driving range of 329 miles, 3 electric motors, and then a battery pack that is 212.7 kilowatt hours. So yes, monstrously large battery pack and power. And then this means that this has a 0 to 60 time, with everything taken into account, of 3 seconds. Now, you guys already saw in several shots, but there is like a cool little light thing here with the turn signal indicators because they're sequential. So yeah, I don't know, I can nerd out about that stuff. And also, when you approach it with the key fob, notice how the whole thing illuminates with the daytime running light. And of course, it says Hummer EV there in the center, because you got to flex on everyone that you got the new Hummer EV. Now, aside from that, I love how the hood is raised on either side. I think that looks great. And then notice how the trim right there is all blacked out. And of course, we have our little off-road lights there on either side. And then you guys can see down below here with the lights. And you guys can see just with the bumper with how aggressive this looks. And we've got these big burly tow hooks in case you have to pull someone out here with your Hummer EV. And then notice we've got underbody protection as well. It has that cool aggressive sloped look similar to like what a Ford Raptor or a Ram TRX has. You guys can see the front camera here. We also have parking sensors, and overall I think it's a really good looking vehicle from a front end perspective. And something that I'm actually really impressed with, I know this is kind of like a little nerdy off-road thing, is just how beefy everything is underneath here with the suspension and the control arms and everything. Like you can tell this has been set up for some hardcore off-roading. Now, coming on the side here, we've got 35s wrapped around 18-inch wheels in the front and over in the rear as well. Something that's really cool is GM has actually come out and said that you can just throw 37s on this if you want. They chose to do 35s from the factory, but there's enough space and everything that you can just do 37s, which is pretty cool. But I really do like these tires. These are actually the same tires that are on the Ram TRX. These are a little bit narrower. These are 305 millimeters in width versus the TRXs are 325 millimeters. But the reason I like these tires is they get really good grip in off-road circumstances, and they have a really long lifespan as well for an off-road tire. And then you guys can see you've got the air suspension as well. And then notice how the fender flare has been body painted. We have another Hummer EV logo. We've got our side steps here. And then you guys can see here with the mirror, the shape of it is just pretty crazy. I also have a little camera there at the bottom of the mirror. And then notice here with the trim on the roof, how that's all blacked out. And the side profile on this is really cool. Now, on video, this looks like absolutely massive, and it is a big truck, but it's not as big as you would think once you see it in person, which is kind of interesting. So we're back to the key fob again because we got to do the tailgate drop down here because it's automatic, which is pretty cool. Now you guys can see that, well, everything's already protected from the factory, which is awesome. We have this power outlet here. We also have a tonneau cover from the factory. You guys can see that grab handle there. That's because this has the multi-pro tailgate setup. I'm not sure what they call it in GMC speak. And I've got to find the button, which is right there. And that actually lets you do the step. Now, just like with the GMC Sierras, it has weight limits of 375 pounds, but definitely adds some practicality to it. And you guys can see the little weight limit sticker right there. Now, when folding it up, this is what I found to be the easiest. So just fold up that section right there, and then just pick up the whole thing at once, and then you can kind of just do it all with one arm. Now let's finish things up with the rest of the rear. So we have, again, a giant Hummer EV logo, and then I love the taillights here. Again, really cool with the appearance on that. And then we have our little GMC logo down below. We got more parking sensors here on the rear, and then you guys can see here with the recovery hook just how beefed up that is. And then just look at, again, the rear. Everything is so beefed up on this. Like, you can tell that GM made this with the intention of doing some crazy off-roading. Now, a couple of facts. Payload capacity as stated by the door jam sticker, 1,306 pounds. Towing capacity, 7,500 pounds. So that's right where it should be for a half-ton truck. Now, popping inside, this is where things get even crazier, it seems. I love the two-tone design here with the white and with the black. I think it looks so cool. And just a lot of the elements with the fit and finish and everything, again, it just looks fantastic. Like, look at that. Speaker for the sound system, like that's cool. And then here are the rear seats. So from a material standpoint, again, it looks really good. And then you guys can see here, we've got the behind the seat storage, just like other GMC trucks. And then you guys can see here under seat storage as well. And then getting in is really easy. There is a grab handle as well. You guys can see here with legroom. I mean, this is just like a GMC Sierra 1500 here in the back in terms of the space. And then you guys can see here with a little storage pocket. And look at this, the seat backs are even nice. We've got our climate controls back here. We have heated seats here in the back as well. And then you guys can see here with our cup holder armrest setup. Last thing I want to mention is we have the glass roof here at the top, which is just, I don't know, a really cool feature. It makes this interior, like between like the white coloration and the glass roof, just feel really open. Now here is the front door panel. Again, of course, it says Hummer EV because you got to flex, you got a Hummer EV as much as you possibly can. But again, look at the material use throughout. And then you guys can see here with the memory seats, got all of our window controls. And you notice a lot of switch gear from, again, other GM products. And then we do have blind spot running for the mirrors. Now you guys probably noticed that the windows are frameless, and that's because you can take off the top here with the Hummer EV. And you guys can see with the front seats, and look again with the Hummer EV logo perforated all down the center. Padding on these seats is actually really solid. And then you can see here with the adjustments, pedal layout down below. We've got our parking brake right here, and then we have a bunch of controls here in this section. The main stuff is you can roll down all the windows at once if you want. And then you've got the opening here for the front and then the tailgate. And then look how big this vent is. Like, this is probably the biggest side vent I've ever seen in my life. Steering wheel is power adjustable. Let's pop in. So here is the steering wheel with the Hummer EV. We have a singular paddle shifter there on the back for the regen function. Notice we have adaptive cruise control as well as steering assist. Now you notice that this has a little light there at the top, which would be illuminated with the Super Cruise system because this has Super Cruise. Anyways, you guys can see here with the voice command, phone controls, and of course it says Hummer there in the center, and then another Hummer EV logo. We've got to just count up all the logos on this thing because there's a ton of them. And then notice here with the stitching, but overall definitely a nice steering wheel. And then of course we have our turn signal light stock, and then our windshield wiper stock, you know, the normal stuff. Now here is the center gauge cluster screen. I really like the setup of the screen overall. It's pretty simplistic with the design, but it has all the information you need. Like you guys can see charging percentage, and it lets us know how many miles that we have on the charge right now, which is more than what this is supposed to have. Suspicious. Did they underrate the range? You guys can see here like the odometer as well. But yeah, overall, like this base setup I think is really cool with just how simplistic the whole thing is. And then just like a lot of other vehicles, we can scroll through different menus here, as you can see. So you can see different bits of info on the Hummer EV. And also, look at that. With the air suspension, it lets us know where we're at. Now we're gonna have to break the infotainment system up into several different segments because there's a lot to go over. So first off, if we pop it into reverse, we've got a really nice camera system. This is something that GM has done a fantastic job with, and that is their camera systems. You guys can see we've got like this full 360 camera view where you can see out of every single angle. It's just absolutely fantastic, and that carries over into the Hummer EV. Now, as for the rest of the infotainment system, it's pretty similar to a lot of GM's other infotainment systems. I know the font looks different, but we've got like a shortcut bar here on the side with all of the normal stuff, including Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and then you have this auxiliary screen. So if you guys have seen my reviews on like the new GMC Sierra, again, this looks slightly different because there's different bits of info because this is fully electric, but the overall layout is pretty much the same. I do love this, how you press the little Hummer icon and then you guys can see like how high we are with the elevation, the drive mode, all that kind of stuff. And then, I mean, look at all the information that it gives you. This is just so cool, all the different things you can go through. And notice here with the air pressure, and you guys can air down as well. Like, it just, so much off-road tech has been thrown into this, which I absolutely love, because you know what, we don't have enough off-roaders. And I just love how everything is stylized. Like, it feels like an event, even though you're just getting basic bits of off-road information like pitch and roll, for example. But that's the first little part. Now the next part is the drive modes. So first off, we twist the dial. We are in my mode. You guys can see going to normal. You have these cool animations as you go into each drive mode, which is really fun. You got your terrain mode, and you guys can see the off-road mode. And so yeah, it's just really cool how it changes everything with the different drive modes. But on top of that, there are some more controls to go over. So just down below the infotainment system, we have all of our climate controls here in this section, and our controls for like the heated and cooled seats, for example. So like if I want to adjust the seats, I press this switch here, and then it pulls up with this menu, and then I can press this to adjust the seat itself. And then when you're done, you can just press this again, and then it goes away. And then same thing here with the climate system. So it's like just this crazy multi-screen, like little switch setup, which is definitely overwhelming at first, but it's something that you can get used to. And then I love how the heated steering wheel button has its own little control. Notice here how we have a rear locker. We also have a front locker as well, which is, again, great off-road tech. And then you guys can see with the stability control, parking sensors, and that whole setup right there. And then you can see down here with the whole like vent setup, definitely interesting with the overall stick, and very boxy, just like the Hummer. And then of course we have a wireless phone charger, and it's angled very nicely so you can see your phone and it'll hold it in place, which is definitely solid. We've got the shifter here, just to go into, well, basically park, reverse, neutral, and drive. Right, and then of course we have our little cup holder setup. We're going to get into this dial more in just a second. We have a center console which has tons of storage space. Again, a lot of this looks like a carryover from the Sierra trucks. Not like the appearance. The appearance is like custom to the Hummer EV, but like this whole center console setup, a lot of it is carried over is what I'm noticing. And then you guys can see with the glove box setup, I really like the look here on the dash. And of course it says Edition 1 because, well, we got the Edition 1 here. Okay, so we have this dial, so you twist it for the drive modes, but we've got like air suspension on it. So like if I press the air suspension button, then you guys can see I can change the ride height to the different ride height settings. And then you guys can see these two functions on either side. So you guys can see here with the one function, your mode, right? And then on the other side, we have the whole rear steering setup, right? So you can do the whole crab walk stuff if you want. It's pretty cool. But yeah, you've got that whole thing right there. Now I showed this earlier, but you do have the top with the whole glass roof setup that you can take off if you want. Notice we've got this like structural bar right here. But again, it just makes this interior feel so open. And of course we have the camera mirror, which is such a nice bit of safety tech. But yeah, this definitely has this like cool special utilitarian feel to it in terms of like the overall interior feel. Now the most important setting for the Hummer EV is this. So press the stability control button twice. Your seat will vibrate. You get this like whole movie theater experience, and then we got the watts to freedom, which is the launch control for this, and that's how you get the 0 to 60 time of 3 seconds. And because this is electric, that 0 to 60 can still be attained at, well, where we're at, 4,300 feet elevation, because you don't get power loss with electric vehicles. You actually might get power gain because, well, there's fewer air particles up here, so then, yeah, less aerodynamic resistance. Just saying. So I want to quickly talk about visibility before we set off. Here's your visibility over the hood, both of the mirrors, and then throughout the rest of the rear. And with that being said, we're going to go on a very interesting test drive today. So first off, we're going to test the crab walk feature. So all you have to do is hold down the four-wheel steering button for about 6 seconds, and it'll turn the feature on. And it is such a strange experience because the truck just like, yeah, it's, I mean, you guys can see like how I have the steering wheel turned. It is unlike anything that I have ever experienced before in my entire life. It's so weird. Obviously, it's supposed to help with off-road circumstances, and then when you're done, you just should hold it back down, and then boom, turns it off. And I've got rear steering on auto, and then I can turn the rear steer off if I want. I'm just gonna leave it on auto though. Oh, mode unable. Well, steering is turned, so we'll go stop. So I'll just leave the rear steer on auto. So this is not crab walk, this is just auto, so it's not gonna do the weird crab walk thing. Yeah, weird, and it just goes with the off-road practicality. And on top of having crab walk, this has 15.9 inches of ground clearance, which is pretty much more than any other off-roader from the factory, aside from like super specialized vehicles like the Mercedes G-Wagon 4x4 squared. And so yeah, this thing is definitely set up to do some crazy stuff that people will never actually use it for. They'll just do the crab walk on road while they're mall crawling. And initially setting off in this, really comfortable with the drive. It's really like, it's just smooth. The suspension feels amazing. That's definitely a highlight, I can tell you. Yeah, it's just like, it really does feel like a luxury vehicle. Tire noise is pretty minimal. The rear steer really helps out quite a bit, because with the rear steer, it makes this feel substantially smaller than it is. I'm actually going to turn off the rear steer. I have to reduce speed to change modes, so I can't. Oh, cool, we'll stop here. So I have the rear steer turned off now, and with it turned off, it feels more like a, you know, big heavy pickup truck with the turn in. So that rear steer really does make a big difference here with the Hummer EV. That is so interesting. The crab walk's still the weirdest thing to me, because it just feels so, the crab walk just feels so unnatural for a vehicle to do. I'm actually gonna pop the rear steer back on because I really like that. Regen's pretty solid on this too. Again, you got that paddle to help out with that. Okay, so we got the rear steer on. Sounds this truck makes too. It's not a lot, but you hear a little bit from the electric motor setup. So we are about to get on the highway here with the Hummer EV. So this isn't a watts to freedom launch control. This is just going to be a regular acceleration. It's probably going to be extremely fast because it's, well, fully electric. Okay. Wow. So it does get up to speed extremely fast, but it's so big that it hides it really well. Like if you've been in, you know, the new Ram TRX, for example, this kind of feels super, yeah, it feels super similar. Like you've got like the front end kind of lifts up a little bit, and it's, yeah, it hides the speed. That rear steer, I can feel it acting quite a bit. Seat comfort is actually really good. This is probably the most comfortable seat in a GM product. Like, they did a really good job with the padding on this, I'd have to say. And this is actually a pretty solidly insulated cabin. That's something that I'm surprised with. I thought that since it's, you know, kind of like a Jeep Wrangler, Ford Bronco, where you can take off the roof, that it would be kind of like rattly and stuff, because those vehicles are, but this is not. This is way faster than it needs to be. That's so funny. Yeah, and the regen, let's see with the paddle. Ooh, okay, so that paddle makes it even more hardcore with the regen. Okay, so let's sum things up here with the Hummer EV. So I think this thing looks amazing on the outside. It's really quick. It doesn't feel super quick because, again, the size, like, this is a behemoth. So, like, yeah, it takes a second to go through, but it's super quick. It drives amazingly well. It drives like a luxury car. It really does. And so, you know, I hate to admit this as someone who owns a Ram TRX, but I love this. I love how this drives. I think that GM has done an amazing job with this. Something that I found even weirder about crab walk is doing it in reverse. It's such, It's such a weird system. Like, it's the weirdest thing that I've ever experienced in my life. That's all I gotta say. GM definitely did a weird thing there. But yeah, I guess fully summing things up, I mean, right now in the market, in terms of like cool off-road pickup trucks, I think this is, I mean, obviously for EV pickup trucks, this wins, hands down. I like this more than the Rivian, that's for sure. I do like this more than the F-150 Lightning. Obviously, it's more expensive than both of those. But, you know, in terms of like this compared to, you know, regular internal combustion engine trucks, this thing's an absolute riot. I came into this review thinking that I would not like this compared to the Ram TRX as an owner of a TRX, but I leave this with the regret that I didn't order one of these when it was announced. That's all I gotta say. This thing's pretty cool. Now that's gonna sum things up for our video on this Hummer EV, and I want to show you guys one last thing, and that is the Hummer in the off-road setting. Like, definitely super tall in that setting. But again, a huge shout out and thank you to the Southtown Tim Daly Nissan for giving me some time with this Hummer EV. Check out the inventory in the description down below. I'll see ya.